Thank you, everyone, for coming to Communicating Your Investigations with StoryMaps. Our presenter today is Joseph Kersky. He is a geographer who focuses on GIS education. Joseph gave a TED Talk on the whys of where, which I watched and was fantastic. He holds 3 geography degrees and has served in government at NOAA, the Census Bureau, and USGS. He's been a professor in academia. He's worked in the industry where he's currently the Esri Education Manager, and nonprofit. He's been the president of the National Council for Geographic Education and others. He's authored 75 chapters and articles, visits 35 universities annually, conducts professional development, writes curriculum, and speaks internationally. He created 5,000 videos, 750 lessons, 1,000 blog essays, podcasts, columns, and 8 books, including Interpreting Our World. As a lifelong learner, he actively seeks mentors, partnerships, and collaborators. And I have to say, I go out of my way to surround myself with some of the kindest, funniest, and most passionate people about using geospatial technology to make our world better. And Joseph Kersky might be the kindest, smartest, and most passionate of all of those. So I'm very pleased to introduce Joseph and see his presentation today. Thank you, Joseph.
Oh, heavens, Shay. Thank you for the I appreciate the kind words. That's really going above and beyond. But really, the AGIC community, you folks you're doing, I think, inspiring, innovative work. You really want to move this forward. So I'm kind of bummed that I'm not able to hang out in the saguaros with you all in the cholla, because I love those landscapes. I'm from western Colorado, and I, grew up in the junipers and piñons, and I love the landscapes of western Colorado, northern Arizona, and really all parts of Arizona. Last time I was there, I went to ASU and visited Shay and others, and also the folks in the business school, and hopefully I'll be back with you all soon. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on, I think, a manifestation of the wonderful cloud-based platform that we all have at our fingertips nowadays in the world of GIS, and why that actually matters and what you can do with it. And specifically focusing on some web mapping applications. Now, just to kind of refresh your memory, this is just one manifestation of the cloud. This, admittedly, is the Esri cloud manifestation. And there are others, for sure. But the point is, you've got the ability to create field surveys, map them, analyze them, create compelling visualizations, including dashboards and story maps from that data. That's pretty exciting to me. Even the desktop tools nowadays, like ArcGIS Pro, they really get their power from the cloud, so they're best used in collaboration and in connectivity with the cloud. That's, I think, a paradigm-shifting moment for all of us in research, instruction, administration, and others. And these apps bring the power of GIS to everyone. My goal on the education team is to partner with schools, universities, community colleges, technical colleges, tribal colleges, libraries, museums, after-school clubs, everywhere there's education happening, to help them use these tools to think spatially and critically. And the exciting thing about these apps is that they're really opening up, as I think many of you suspect, the world of what you and I love as geospatial professionals to people in economics, to people in digital humanities, civil engineering, business, and elsewhere. So that's pretty exciting when you think about all of the issues and problems confronting our society. We really need a diversity of disciplines weighing in, people with those backgrounds to weigh in on these complex problems that are increasingly affecting our everyday lives, right, folks? Health, natural resources, transportation, etc. So I'm going to focus on just the apps that are in these gold boxes, but realize there's a lot of other ones out there. Again, they're very specialized. They do sometimes 5 or 10 things, but they do them very well. And I think they have the capability of bringing in these other folks. For example, Business Analyst Web, working with the schools of business. Hey, that in large part meets their at least introductory and intermediate needs. They want to be able to map their customers. They want to be able to make choropleth maps of consumer behavior, map the competition, make drive time maps and infographics. And that tool accomplishes, again, at least their front-end needs. They want to dig deeper, they can dig deeper. So that's a pretty exciting time for us to get into GIS. And I would just say this to any student out there that's listening to this live or maybe later on, that if you're just getting into GIS, it's a really exciting time. You've got some great people around you there in the AGIC community that can help you. We're all really mentor-driven, right? We all really want to help each other keep moving forward because we do have some problems to solve, and we want to get to a more sustainable, healthier, happier world. That's the goal. And so this workshop in the 5 hours that we have together, just kidding, we don't have 5 hours together, but in the short time that we have together, we're going to go through these, just in a light, gluten-free way, okay, a bite-sized, gluten-free, geospatial way. But the point is, we're going to be able to dip a little toe into the shallow waters of Survey 123, talk about analyzing in ArcGIS Online, and creating a dashboard, creating a map, and then creating a story map that maybe stitches all these things together. And that is our goal. We're going to use this example. We're going to make a story map on walkability. Now, I know that all of you have seen either these infographics for each county or the global map from JHU, Johns Hopkins University. It is, sadly, the most popular web mapping application that's ever been created. For you students out there, you know, one bright spot in all of this is that a grad student actually created that with some guidance from the grad student's professor, surely. But the point is you could do some great things while you're students. And sure, this one gets data feeds from a lot of different places around the world and a lot of different organizations, WHO and others, CDC and so on. The one that I'm going to show you is, it's going to look like this. It's going to be hold on folks, it's going to be a story map on walkability. So it's simpler than the JHU dashboard, which took several days to create. Ours, we're going to be able to at least create the bare bones of it in the short session that we have here today. And just to give you a little overview, inside this story map, I have a little introduction, a little photograph about, do you think this is walkable or not? What is walkability? Why do communities care about it? Inside there, I have a survey 123 in this case. There are other tools, collector, there's quick capture. Survey 123 I think is the easiest to actually start using and get into, and also it's crowdsourceable. So I have several questions in there about whether this location is walkable or not. And then inside the story map then, continuing on, I have a map, a web map, or like an interactive web map of the points that have been submitted to my live survey. It's still open right now. You can actually contribute to it. And so you can see that I've got these surveys now of, okay, is this walkable or not? Interesting. Let's take a look at these. So this is a survey point that I submitted actually while I was teaching down in Australia last year. Good on you, mate. She'll be right. Right across from the Sydney Opera House. Nice park there. Definitely a walkable community. Okay, so inside the story map at the end, I have a dashboard. Now this dashboard is admittedly simpler than the JHU coronavirus dashboard, but it is using the same tools. And the message today is that you have, at your organization, the same tools that I'm using right now, whether you're at a university or a nonprofit or a government agency. The chances are you've got these tools sitting there at your fingertips. So you can see the result. So far, I've got roughly 2/3 of my points in this survey. 421 of them, of the points have been collected thus far. That's my gauge. And of those, 1/3 are unfriendly, 2/3 roughly are friendly. And these are some of the attributes for those points that people, I and others, have submitted. And I've got, of course, the live interactive web map and a map legend and a gauge and a little photograph, and that's about it. Okay? So the idea is we're going to be able to create these things together today. All right. So we're going to go to work now. And I wish I could get excited about this. Gosh, this is amazing that we've got these things at our fingertips right now using this cloud-based paradigm. So we're going to start with Survey 123. But let's step back for a moment. Why teach and learn about this whole cloud-based platform? Well, you know, instructionally, which is where I'm coming from, but also in your organizations, think about, you know, you're really encouraging people to think spatially and critically about data, about issues in their community. You know, what are they passionate about? And getting citizens involved in the process of building more resilient communities, I think is where the heart of this really is. And so we're developing skills along the way. Many of you are instructors, as Shay and I are. And so you want to be, reaching for those higher goals, right? It's not just the techie, geospatial, buffering and overlay and enrichment tools and so on. It's critical thinking, spatial thinking, data fluency, and all the things that I have listed here. Okay, here's another location in Australia. I was going to quiz you all, but this is the 12 Apostles Rocks. So we're going to create a survey. This actually came around. This tool actually was invented during another health crisis, and this was at the Ebola crisis of 2014. So the WHO and a couple of other agencies said, you ESRI people, you're too map focused. And we're like, hey, maps, what's not to love? No, you don't get it. We need something simple that's out there in the field, form-based and not map-based. You can feed it into a map, but we want to start with a form. So our field crews can actually indicate what's going on with Ebola and how do we get people to where they're needed and assess the situation so we can move forward. So that's where Survey 123 came around. It leverages that whole idea of smart forms. More about that in a moment. But the reason why it's called Survey 123 is because we ask questions, we get answers, and then we make decisions. Okay. And there's two ways to create this, and we'll get to StoryMaps, but we're first going to create the survey. We're going to create it using the web designer on the left side here. And the reason why is because the right side will take more time than our workshop allows. But the right side is something to look into. You basically start with Excel. And you don't actually get dumped into just plain old Excel. We actually give you the schema to build the survey from it. And you get a little more power with branching. Now, you can do a little branching, like if they answer this on question 4, go to question 7. If they don't answer this way, go to question 6, so on. So you have a little bit of rule-based branching in the web-based, but you get more power with the Connect using Excel. We're going to start with the left side, though, using the web designer, and it's going to be very much in the way of the things that you've been looking at, for example, with SurveyMonkey or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start over here with Survey 123. Okay, so Survey 123. And there are two ways to kind of go about making this. First, if you go to survey123.arcgis.com and you log in with your organizational credentials. Now, there's a lot you can do in ArcGIS Online without signing in. You can use the Wayback imagery. You can add data. You can do a little bit of changing the legend, changing the style. You can do filtering. You can open the table. You can do a fair amount without actually signing in. But today, since we want to actually save content in that platform, we're going to need to sign in because we need a place to park it. Okay. Now, if you don't have ArcGIS Online in your organization, your government agency, your university, wherever you're located, then go to developers.arcgis.com and sign up for a free account, or go to learn.arcgis.com and sign up for a free account there. And there's other ways to get it. Okay. But it's best to actually use your organization's account so that you can share with your colleagues, and that's the idea. So let's go ahead, and you can see once you get into Survey 123 in that zone, just like StoryMaps and dashboards, you're going to get, okay, here's the content that you've got created so far. And I want to create a new survey. Okay, and I'm going to call it Walkability Survey AGIC Conference. Okay, and you don't have to spend, this is not your master's thesis, but if we were actually doing this, outside of a conference, you probably want to spend a little more time being thoughtful about the metadata tags so that you can find your own data later, and so other people can find your own data later on as well. So, okay, so we're going to put a few tags in there, and what I'm not going to spend your valuable AGIC time. I know you're the AGIC community. I mean, you want to go above and beyond. You're deep divers into the world of geospatial, and because of that, I'm not going to spend time on stuff that you would probably think, oh yeah, I know I can do that. For example, here, you know that you can add your own logo. You can change the fonts. You can change the appearance of this whole thing, all the colors, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to spend time doing that, but I just wanted to get you into, okay, we want a multiple choice question. Is this location walkable? Okay, great. We don't need choice 3. We're going to subtract that. Yes. No. Okay, pretty simple stuff. Okay, great. Is it a required question? Yeah, I think I do want it to be required. So I'm going to check this box, And then I'm going to say submit. And okay, so far so good. Now, what about this, folks? Map. So this is an example of the rapid evolution of these tools. Before spring, you could only add point data to a survey 1, 2, 3. Now you can add lines and polys. So think about fence lines, think about perimeters of wetlands, parks, other things that you could actually collect out in the field with lines and polygons. I know this sounds so geeky, right, Shay? Ooh, lines and polygons. But it's just, I think, a good example of, keep your knees bent. These tools will evolve, but the good news is that every time they evolve, they become more powerful and easier to use. Yeah, so a double advantage there. Okay, so where is this location, right? And we're going to add point data in this case. Let's say I want Arizona State University. Let's say I'm doing a walkability study on Arizona State University campus. Okay, cool. So I want to focus the map so they don't have to pan the whole world. I want to focus this really on the ASU campus. I mean, what's not to love? So let's go ahead and, okay, now let's say I want to change the base map to imagery with labels so they can say, okay, that sidewalk is where I am right now. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to go ahead and submit that. So now I've got just 2 questions in there, right? Where is it, and is it walkable or not? Okay, so far so good. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. Again, I'm not going to spend time dragging and dropping the Likert scale, single choice, and all the other things, true, false, and other things. It's just like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, which you've probably used. It's a matter of dragging and dropping things over to an interface. And that's all there is to it. Yes, with some customization, but the thing I want to focus on as soon as this thing publishes is a couple of things that are really unique to why this is more powerful than SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, i.e. it is map-enabled, right? It becomes an editable feature service. It becomes an editable map layer that you can put in ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, web mapping applications, 2D maps, 3D scenes, and a lot more. And the things that I want to focus on here, first of all, is if you go under Analyze, and we don't have any records in here, but you're going to have the ability to look at bar charts and pie graphs, and this isn't the RStats package, okay? You're not going to be able to do heavy-duty analysis here, but you're going to get at least a snapshot of what you've got in your survey thus far, you being the owner of the survey. Another thing to focus on here is the Collaborate. Now, just like other tools like StoryMaps and dashboards, you're going to have some choices to make. Choices are good, but you're going to have to make those choices about who's going to be able to participate in your survey. Now, one of the things that brought me some geo-joy a couple years ago, is geo-chills, if you know what I mean, is the ability to crowdsource these things. So look at this. Who can submit to this survey? If you check everyone, they don't have to know anything about GIS. They don't even have to have the app. There is a Survey 123 app that they can have on their phone, but they could just open it in a web browser. Wow. So now Survey 123 is on the level of like iNaturalist and eBird and some of those other tools that are truly crowdsourced citizen science kinds of tools. So think of that, the implications there. If you wanted to have this for, okay, I want students at ASU to be able to fill this out. They might not know anything about GIS unless Shay has her way and everybody knows about it, right? But the point is, you've got some powerful choices in here. Also at the top, notice that I can even ask the end user if they want to open it in the app or not, or I could just by default say, I want to open it in the browser. Now, what do you do if you have no internet connectivity? Well, I've got an essay I can point to at the end about bringing this offline, like if you're in the middle of Nowheresville, Arizona. Yep. Okay, so, and also what can submitters do? Do you want them only to be able to add? Do you want them to add an update? Do you want to be able to have them have the ability, how much power do you want them to have to edit other people's? Fascinating. Now, the thing I wanted to point out here is this link right over here, this sort of a link symbol. So you can send this short URL or even capture that QR code and put that somewhere so people can just, hold up their phone and scan that and be good to go. So you've got some pretty powerful capabilities here is what I'm getting at. Okay, now once you create that survey, it's going to be sitting inside your ArcGIS Online organizational account. And it's going to be going into a folder. And sorry, how sometimes you open up a new browser tab, it doesn't remember that you're signed into a certain application. And so you're going to have to watch me sign in probably multiple times in this session. But hopefully you're going to say, wow, Joseph, I can create that survey. I get it. I get the basics. And if I want to dig deeper, you're going to show me at the end how to dig deeper, and that's exactly right. So inside your content zone, inside ArcGIS Online, you're going to have a folder. When you create a folder with a survey, 1, 2, 3, it's going to start with survey dash. So here I've got a folder with survey, what is the walkability of this location? I've got a form in there. That's my survey 1, 2, 3, this thing right down here toward the bottom of the screen. I also have a feature layer. Ooh, okay. What is the feature layer? It gets created when the survey gets created. And again, this is how you configured it in terms of how you want people. It's saying, hey, Joseph, this is editable and shared with the public. I know that. That's the way I created it and set it up. If you open it in the map viewer, okay, let's add to new map. Okay, so we're going to add to new map, and now we've got a map with not the survey that I created 10 minutes ago, right, folks? I didn't have anybody add to that survey, but my original walkability survey that you saw me demonstrate earlier. So now I've got this. Ooh, we've got something at Null Island. Okay, so maybe a little data cleanup here. It's open, it's crowdsourced, didn't have a location. You probably encountered that before as well. So now I've got this survey as a feature service on the left side, and I've got the base map, which of course I can change. Okay, so far so good. Now, let's go ahead and let's share this. Now, one thing to note here, folks, and that is as follows. If we share this, we haven't saved it yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this as, and I'm going to call it Walkability Map for AGIC Conference. That way I'll know I created it with you all, or all y'all, as they say in Texas. Okay, give it a tag. Okay, all good. Okay, all right, super. So now I've created a map with the survey embedded in it. Now, because I'm signed in, I have these analysis tools. Now, oftentimes people are rightly so proud about their maps, and so they say, "Hey, Joseph, you know, I've got my data on my map," and I'll say, "Great." And the goal is not to just put the data on the map, right, folks? The goal is to understand something, walkability, the health issues that we're facing, invasive species, water quality, natural hazards, wildfires, whatever it is, in a deeper, richer way, correct? Wouldn't you agree? So this is not the end goal. So the reason why I'm pausing here to mention all that is because you do have, even in ArcGIS Online, you've got some proximity, overlay, and other analysis tools. Now, when the analysis tools came into being roughly around 2014, it again brought me some geo-tingles, because then it was more than a map viewer. It became a true SaaS GIS. Being able to do this in the cloud is a big leap forward, doing some analysis. Admittedly, there are 45 or so tools in here, but some of them are really powerful, like this data enrichment, you know, the age-old workflow of, okay, I've got to download my data, and then I've got to join it, and you know, then I've got additional attributes that I can map and analyze. Now, that's still a workflow that's going to be around for a while, but you've got increasingly these enrichment tools where you can say, okay, based on the location of this data in central Arizona, I also have the ability to go to access the biomes and ecoregions of Arizona and the Arizona, I don't know, test water quality points and the latest wildfires that are happening in Arizona and in Colorado where I am, and so on, right? I can add other data to it based on the enrichment tools where that is. Ooh, so you've got a lot of power just in that one tool. And another reason why I like it is because it's almost like the Amazon experience. You're grabbing data and you're putting it into this basket, and then you're saying, okay, let's go ahead and map those things. Now, that being said, as I've posted to the AGIC listserv numerous times in the past, I do have this spatial reserves data blog. And the reason why I mention it now is not to go off on a tangent, but I think it's really germane to this whole discussion about data. I want to have people be really critical of where data comes from. Yes, it's great to be able to add these through the enrichment tool and other means inside, let's say, ArcGIS Online. Within a minute, right, we could have population density, wildfire perimeters, watersheds, and other things in Arizona and beyond. Do I know where all those data layers came from? Can I trust them? Who created them? How were they created? And so on. Now, you've got this wonderful, data-infused community there in Arizona where Jenna and others provide amazing amounts of data. Make sure that you cultivate in the colleagues that you're working with this whole idea of being critical of data. And this Spatial Reserves data blog is all about how do I know if I can trust data? Where do I find data? How do I know if I can trust it? And societal issues like citizen science and data privacy and things like that. Look, a couple months ago, I even reviewed the Arizona AZ Data Hub because I'm such a big fan. So anyway, hopefully this will be useful as you work with colleagues and say, hey, it's a map and therefore it's perfect. And you can say, well, let's have a little chat. Okay, useful, yes, perfect, no. Okay, so that said, okay, we've got some data in this map. And what I want to do is I want to share it. And this is, again, just like in story maps and surveys, you have some choices to make. Who do you want to be able to view, be allowed to view this map, and so on. Okay, but skipping that over for the moment, create a web app. Ooh, okay. Look in here. You can actually create a story map right from this zone right here by sharing it. Because sharing, you know, it makes sense with the story map because story maps are all about communicating. So it kind of makes sense that it's in the shared area. And then also Web App Builder, or is now the Experience Builder. You may have seen demos of the Experience Builder at the ESRI UC this past July. If not, you can go ahead and look at those videos. But the Web App Builder is still there. It's just gradually going to be, you know, more and more development is going to be in the Experience Builder. But you can build a customized web app here. Gives you a little more power than a story map. It takes a little more time. So again, it's kind of like choose the most appropriate tool for the job. You want quick and not as much functionality, story map is the way to go. You want a little more functionality, take a little longer, customize a little bit more, Web App Builder / Experience Builder. So it's all good. You know, it's like peanut M&Ms and plain. I mean, they're both good. It's just what is your, you know, what do you really want at that particular time? So, but dashboards, ooh, this is something we're going to make. Think of the dashboard in your car, right? It's got, you know, a lot of information in a short amount of space. Ditto for web mapping dashboards. I'm going to put dashboard in here. I realize it's a little bit old school because it's going to tell me that it's a dashboard type, but that way I can just look at the title and know right away that it's a dashboard. Okay, so I'm good with that, and now I'm going to be in the dashboard creation zone. The dashboard creation zone is going to be fairly intuitive. I think especially you being the AGIC community, you're going to say, okay, Joseph, I totally get that. Notice in the upper right here, you've got a plus sign, and everything is pretty much driven on that. So let's say I want to gauge. I want to know how many survey points have been put into my particular survey. I've got some feature layers in here. I'm going to pick walkability, and my default, in the interest of time, here in our workshop today, I've got 421 points in there. I'm good with the orange. I'm good with the configuration of the dashboard for now. I can configure it later on if I want. I'm going to make that a little smaller. Okay, so I've got a gauge in here now, and how about a pie chart? Okay, I'm going to add a pie chart. Again, picking the feature layer. What kind of things do I have at my fingertips? Is it pedestrian friendly or unfriendly? Again, I'm going to skip over the leader lines, the fonts, the colors. You know, you can customize all that. I'm good with the defaults at this point. And now I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I really don't like the way this looks right now. I'm going to drag the gauge above the pie chart. Okay, and I'm getting a little bit of cutting off right here for the null value. I really don't have any null values. I'd like the map to be a little more prominent. Thank you very much. So, okay, you see where I'm going with this, right, folks? So I'm configuring as I'm going. And time permitting, you know, we would add additional elements in here. But really, folks, everything that you'd want to put in here is going to be driven by this plus sign. And sure, to dig a little deeper would take maybe workshop number 2, where we say, okay, if the average pH in this pond goes below 5.5, then do something with the dashboard to flag it. Change some fonts to red or something like that, right? So you can add some, I would say, intermediate functionality that's a little bit more deeper than this, but you can do that kind of thing. That, again, is beyond the scope of this particular workshop, but realize that you can do that. But really, folks, I've gone through one way of creating one of these dashboards. Another way of creating one of these dashboards and creating story maps and other things is if you go into your ArcGIS online account. Oh, sorry, I've got to sign in again. Hopefully people are not checking their email and completely off task. Hopefully you're saying, gosh, I had no idea this stuff was at my fingertips. if I go into my own organizational account, it's the SRE Denver Regional Office. Yours is going to be your university, your nonprofit, your government agency, whatever, your community college, and so on. If you go to this 3x3 grid of dots, okay, this is another way that you can create the tools that I'm going through with you all today, okay? So, for example, we just made a dashboard. You can create a dashboard right here. You don't have to go to share a map and then create a dashboard. There's a couple ways to do just about everything in the platform, which is good, and it also involves, again, some choices, what you're most comfortable with, but it's basically you're going to be able to do that. So that said, let's use this method to create the third thing that we need well, actually the fourth thing. We created a survey, we made a web map, we also touched on a little bit on the analytical tools, and then we made a dashboard. And so we're gonna end with story maps. So story maps, okay, I'm gonna create a story map. And just like Survey 1, 2, 3, just like dashboards, just like ArcGIS Online content, you've got a sort of a zone where you've got all of your existing content, and you can build new content along with metadata and choices on whether you want to share it or not. And so I've got a series of story maps in here in this particular account. And let's say I want a new story. Okay, I'm going to start from scratch. So I've got a blank canvas all ahead of me here. And just like dashboards, everything is going to be driven by a plus sign. I'm going to add cover image. So let's say I want to browse my files for, ooh, look at this. I've got a walkable trail. This happens to be in Switzerland where I was teaching once. And okay, how walkable is your community? Okay, great. A walkability study. Great. So I've got an image in there. I've got a title. This is where the power comes in. Okay, I've got a plus sign there. Oh, I can add a video. I can add a button. The button could go to my survey. Remember that original story map that I showed? I'll show it in a bit as well, but I can add my survey right into the story map right here. But let's start with something that I know you all care about, and that is a map. Okay, so these maps can come from your own content that you've created. These are maps that I've created. What if someone shares something with you? Okay, maybe that. You've got some places that you can mark as in terms of favorites. And also you've got the living atlas of the world, which is many, many, many layers, thousands of layers that you can actually pick from. So I'm going to go to my maps here, and I'm going to pick a walkability map. This is the one I created earlier. Remember this walkability map for the AGIC conference? Now in here, let's say you say, well, you know, I really want those to be colored based on if it's walkable or not. Or what if there's branches or snow or some obstruction? I want them to be symbolized differently. Or maybe I want a hotspot map, or maybe I want a weighted mean center, or a statistically significant a density map of some of these places. Well, how do I do that? I can actually edit the map in ArcGIS Online just by clicking down here. But in the interest of time, once again, I'm going to keep it brief, and I'm just going to accept this map like it is right now. Without any sort of coding or embedding, I've just got it right here inside my story map. And I've got some choices here on how big I want to make it. Maybe I make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so now I can see where I'm going with this, folks? Wow. Now I've got the capability. I've got my title. I've got my cover image. At the bottom, I highly encourage you to add some metadata, so people, if you share it, know where the map came from and your sources, all that good stuff that we're always advocating in best practice conversations and in workshops. So in here now, I've got the basics for a story map. Now, there's other things we can talk about in terms of story mapping. And in this same zone, let's say I want a video. Okay, I don't have a lot of video files, do I? But I do have links. Okay, so if I go to my own YouTube channel, which is the Our Earth YouTube channel, and I look up walkability on that channel. I know you're not seeing this right now, but if I search for that walkability map, I'm going to go with a place that's not walkable. And this is actually pretty walkable. So right here, I am going to share this. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, so I've got a walkable place that you might appreciate as the geo community. Here I am walking on 100 degrees longitude. I mean, what's not to love, okay? So in here now, without any sort of embed code, I'm actually walking right on 100 degrees. Yep. And as you can see, there is my GPS receiver right there on 100 degrees. And what's not to love? Okay, so the point is, I've got some basics here of my story map. My title, my image, a map, a video, and I can add other elements. I can add a dashboard. I can add a survey. Now, that being said, sometimes we get, hey, look at this cool map I made. I've embedded a map, inside of a story map, inside of a dashboard, inside of a, you see where I'm going with this? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Remember, the whole goal of these tools is to be able to communicate some issue that is of concern to you or the community, right? And so you want to be clear. You know, Mark Twain was always about, hey, if I had more time to edit my manuscript, I would have made it shorter. That's what Twain said, and I think it's a good lesson here. You want to be short and sweet with these things. You don't want to go on. This isn't your master's thesis, okay? So sure, some of these story maps can be pretty involved and pretty robust, like Hot Numbers story map, okay? So that's a recent one that came out from our StoryMaps team. It took more than a workshop to create. It probably was a several-week, maybe several days, maybe 4 or 5 days. But in here, in this story map, it's all about climate and changing climate. So there's graphs in here that you know were created in, some of them were created in maybe Photoshop and brought in here. There's a couple of interactive web maps, of course, which I always advocate, because sometimes we get story maps that we see that actually don't have any maps in there. And hey, if it meets the need, I say go ahead and use it. But you know, the real power here is actually using this in conjunction with maps and graphs and charts and photos and imagery and so on. So this is pretty long. This is kind of pushing the boundaries of maybe what should be in one single story map, as opposed to maybe putting tabs, which you can do, and have story maps in these different tabs. But anyway, this is a story map, and it's created with these same exact tools that you and I have just gone through in this very simple way of creating this rudimentary beginnings of a walkability map. Okay, so let's get back to our focus here. We talked a little bit about the analysis tools. We created a dashboard, and if we had had more time, it would have looked a little bit more like this with a couple of additional images and pie charts in it. But we did the basics, and then we created this story map on walkability. Again, the beginnings of it, but hopefully you're saying, I totally get that. I understand it, and now Joseph's going to tell me, and rightly so, I am, where do I go from here? How do I keep digging deeper? Before I go digging deeper with you all, I want to show you this. Here is an example of, I think, it doesn't go too deep. It's not embedding inside an embed inside an embed. It's a, you know, I'm active in GIS Day as well, and one of the submittals we got last year was the Port of Tacoma. I mean, they love ports. You know, what's not to love? Anyway, so they have these tabs about different ports, and they have a quiz that's actually Survey 1, 2, 3, but the survey is inside the story map. So, you know, what's your team? What's the name of this port versus this port? So you have to look at a series of satellite imagery, and based on the configuration of the landforms in the port, you guess that it's, oh, that's Rotterdam. Oh, that's Sydney, Australia. Good on you. So that's a good example. But this lesson, everything that I've talked about here so far, folks, is inside this lesson here. And I'm going to put this in the chat box, if there is such a thing. I assume there is somewhere. And
sorry, Joseph, there is,
fascinating.
but I find that I have to stop sharing to find.
Oh, no worries. No
so
worries.
maybe in a minute you could put them in.
Yeah, if I could. Oh, here we go. I'm sure I can find it. Here we go. Chat. Yeah, there we go. So this lesson is right here, folks, and you'll see when you open it up, it's going to look like this. And you can say, oh, Joseph, you know, is this walkable or not? I mean, this side of the sidewalk has a dishwasher on it. This sidewalk here has some snow and some branches and some cracks in the pavement. But I go through with you in this lesson all of the things that we ever so briefly touched on. I hope you're not frustrated by the brevity of this, but I just wanted to give you a taste of, okay, I'm going to have confidence now that I can do this just based on this hour-long session. So you're going to create the field survey, then you create the story map, you create the dashboard, you create the map, then the dashboard, then the story map. So the story map stitches it all together. And that's the reason why I did this approach today, because oftentimes people say, you know, I really love that hot numbers story map. How do I create that story map? Well, there's some pieces that go into story maps, like web mapping, right, and analysis and other things that you kind of have to know or at least be somewhat familiar with before you go. The story map kind of points to these other elements in my way of thinking. Sure, you can start with a story map, but then at some point you're going to get to, I really want a map in here. How do I get that map in there? And then, okay, how do I symbolize the map? How do I classify the map? Where do I get the data to build the map in the first place? So you see what I mean? That's why I approached it the way I did in this workshop and also in this lesson, which I hope is helpful. At the end of the lesson description is a zip file. I know that sounds a bit old school, but the reason why I put it that way is that way you'll have every single thing you need in the zip file. You won't have to point to my different, web images and videos. I think it's important for people to start with a common success. So everybody goes through this in, let's say, a workshop that you're conducting, or you yourself. And that way you've got success in building. And then you can start thinking about all the other things that you're interested in that you might want to do to run through with these same tools. So inside the zip file, I have all the images, all the videos, all of the step-by-step for, okay, I'm going to go into the dashboard, I'm going to press the plus sign. I mean, I really get pretty granular. And I think that I probably overdid it, so I think you'll get about halfway through the story map section where I'm having you add the plus sign and add elements, and you'll say, oh, I totally get that. I totally get where you're going with this. I don't really need to go through the last half, and that's perfectly fine too. Okay, so that is the lesson. I also have, if you truly want to go with just a story maps, a hands-on lesson in the new story maps tools, I also have a lesson there that doesn't touch on dashboards and surveys. It just has you build a story map. And again, I have a zip file in there where you've got the images. What you end up with is, I mean, what's not to love about geomorphology, right, folks? It's a field trip to the Northwest Indiana dunes, okay? So it's not Arizona or Colorado, but it's still pretty cool. It's glacial landforms. And when you go through that lesson, you will end up with something that looks almost exactly like this. So a geomorphology field trip, I have you build these web maps with a couple of points on it. You have a couple of photographs. I have you point to a map where I'm doing trace downstream throughout a drainage divide. Okay, it's Indiana. Okay, it's not like you're scaling a peak or anything, but still, it's fascinating. You've got a couple of images in there, and this is actually as a result of a field trip I was at with some university students. Look at that. There's some dunes there. Cool. Yeah, I love geomorphology. I mean, what's not to love? You get a geologic map. Anyways, you build this is what you do. Yep. And it's a fairly involved story map, but again, I think you'll get about a third of the way through this one, and you'll say, yeah, I get that. I understand that. So I'm going to paste that one in. If you truly just want story maps, that's what this one is for. Another thing to mention in the remaining moments that we have together is the following. You can have one way to think about doing this, you can have a regular CV or a resume. I do, and probably you do too. Okay, well, why not have a story map as well? And you can link to it in your regular CV. Okay, like here, I've got my link to my story map in my regular CV. But in your story map, hey, I studied at ASU, and then I went over and did an internship at Arizona Lands, and then I did this. And so you've got an interactive map in there, but you can also do things like, put nerdy photographs of yourself, laying on maps, and whatever else you're interested in doing. So think about creating a story map of your CV. One of the reasons why is it's your own personal story, so you know it. It's in your head. You don't need a tutorial. It's your own story. Secondly, you're immersing yourself in the story maps tools. You're practicing some GIS skills. And third, your potential employer even your current employer. Let's say you're not interested in finding another place of employment right now, but they'll say, hey, this person knows something about web mapping tools because here's their CV as a story map. So that's kind of a fun way of, if you kind of quarterly or every so often kind of get immersed in, okay, need to update this. Oh, what new tools are available? Wow, I think I'll add a sidecar thing on my story map and that sort of thing. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Last piece here that I wanted to get you thinking about, and that is how do you move forward? There's no shortage, as we know from being GIS professionals, of tools to continue your lifelong learning. And there is a very active Survey 123 zone on GeoNet that our product managers for Survey 123 actively participate in. There's a Learn library of lessons on building story maps. So in other words, if you want more than just the lesson I provided, there are others as well. And there is a very nice blog about connecting Web App Builder, Story Maps, Experience Builder, and dashboards, if you want to take a look at that. So again, there's ways to move forward. There's also on the MOOC page, the Massive Open Online Courses, there is a MOOC on do-it-yourself geo apps, this one over here. These MOOCs are very nicely done. They're high quality. You go through them as a cohort, though. So unlike most of the stuff on our training site, you go through like a university course with a group of colleagues. And so that's why they're not just open at any time. The idea is to build community. But the do-it-yourself geo apps, some of those, as you would expect, are focused on a story map. So that's another way of getting into this. Questions, comments, complaints? Let me pull up the chat.
Yes, I believe there are a couple of questions in the chat. So can you see it yet?
Yep, here we go. Okay. Oh, yes.
So Jamie's asking, can you create custom CSS for dashboards?
I think you're entering into the experience builder space. I don't know if you can take the configurable dashboards and add those elements to it. It may be possible, though. I do not know, and I don't want to pretend that I do. So you might want to look at the dashboards GeoNet zone just to confirm. I can also get back with you, too. I can ask our dashboards team about that and get back with you probably later today. You just send me an email. Or put your email in the chat.
Cool.
Great question, though. Yeah, because you want to dig deeper. See, that's what I love about the AGIC community. You folks are all about challenging yourself to go deeper and wider. So thanks for letting me be a part of the community. We do touch. Well, it's not really a point, right? It's like a zero. It's like a null. What is it called? A null line. It's like that's at the four corners. We actually, can we say we touch? Okay, let's just pretend that we do. Colorado and Arizona.
I think we do. I think
I can put one foot.
Counts.
Yeah, I can put 1 foot in each state, or a hand. Right?
I'm sure you have, actually.
You got to play Four Corners Twister, right?
Indeed.
Absolutely. Shay is asking, can you put anything on the back side of a Survey 123 survey that does not show on the front end?
Like hidden pieces in the survey.
I think that's what she's asking.
I have not. That's a great question. I have not tried that. So questions or elements 7 through 10 are not visible. I don't think so, but I've never seen a choice that allows you to not share pieces of it. I wonder if there's another way to do that, though. Like make another piece that attaches to the survey that's not in Survey 123, let's say.
Right. I
You know
guess
what I mean?
the reason we wanted it is we were hoping for a back end to use as a tracking. So 99% of the questions are out there for everyone to see, but then because multiple ones of us access it, is there a way to track, oh, Shay took care of that, Jen took care of that, Joseph took care of that, without, you know, once you export it, you lose your live link.
Right.
But I
Well,
also, you talked about, Emily
thanks,
may have
Emily.
answered my question. Yes, hidden field. When you go to start, all right, I'll look in the desktop. I wondered.
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
I haven't seen desktop. That was helpful.
Well, Emily means the connect way, the Excel method, don't you, Emily? And that does, thanks. Yeah, that does give you more power than that. I was just using the drag and drop, you know, very simple, limited functionality, but easy to deploy. But yeah, that desktop survey 123 with Excel. Can you display a web map to the participant? Yeah, you can. We got William Nye on here. You related to Bill Nye? Are you William Nye, the GIS guy? Cool. Anyway, yeah, so in my survey 123 for the walkability, I actually have click here to see the interactive map, to see your point on the map, because I like to provide sort of instant gratification for the people filling it out. So yeah, you can do that. And then you can also say, click here to fill out another point, to enter another point, and other customized in-screen type of things.
Another question is, what is this way back imagery you speak of?
Oh, gosh. Well, inside the Living Atlas, you've got some apps. And the way back imagery is one of my all-time favorites. It's sort of like GIS Greatest Hits Volume 2. I mean, it's aside from StoryMaps and dashboards and things. So you've got this high-resolution imagery at your fingertips. Let's take a look at Las Vegas. Thank you very much. But just taking a look at this, I mean, look at this. It's incredible. You've got this, okay, it's not 10 or 20 years, but right now, as of this point in history, you've got about 6 years worth of satellite imagery. And so you can use it in the app like this. So looking at, you know, very localized changes over time. Wow. Some of these are depressing. Anyway, the point is you got a lot of change over a small period of time. But notice in the upper left, and also, by the way, what if it's Arizona State University? So it's global. You can look at coastal erosion, the Three Gorges Dam in China, the glacial retreat, so on and so forth. So we've got, you know, different places, only versions with local changes. So I can see changes on the ASU campus. Look at those tennis courts right over here. And now it is part of the, I think it's the Carey School of Business, isn't it? That sort of J-shaped wing structure. Anyway, I was there last year. Yeah, so it didn't exist in 2014. It was tennis courts. Bummer. Okay, well, no, it's still good. It's all good. There's hopefully other tennis courts. But notice in the upper left, and this is what I love about these apps, then what you can do is you can say, I want to pick several of those layers and then bring them into ArcGIS Online for further work. I can do analysis with them. I can even bring them into Pro if I want to. See what I mean? So you can use just the app as is, which is true on the USGS Topo app and this one and others. But then increasingly these apps have, okay, I want level 2 now. I want to take this out into ArcGIS Online or Pro and do more with it. Because the app, you know, is sort of like, do they still make Lunchables? The app is like Lunchables, right? You get a pre-configured 2 carrots, 2 crackers, 2 pieces of cheese, and 2 pieces of turkey, right? Okay, I'm dating myself maybe. But the point is, you can't modify it. But once you take it out of this, then you're in the produce section, and you can customize.
Okay, this is awesome.
Yay.
Thanks.
And Jamie is asking, and I'm just going to say she's asking on behalf of the entire conference committee right now, will you come to AGIC and present every year?
You folks are so wonderful. You know how much I love it there. It would be an honor. Plus, I'm scheduled to go to what's it called? In March Mapness.
Ah, excellent, at the U of A.
At the other university down there, yeah, at U of A. I was scheduled to go there in March when all the disruption happened, so hopefully I'll be back there. And but I'd love to come down and hang out with you at you usually have the fall conference, correct?
Yes, we're usually well here.
Yep. Now, way back in the 20th century, when I was at the U.S. Geological Survey, I actually attended a few times when it was in August. That was mighty toasty, but it was still great. And actually, the last one I went to way back then, okay, this is really dating myself. Ian McHarg spoke.
Wow.
And for those of you that were born after Ian McHarg was alive, he was the first one that really put into book form this whole idea of maps as layers. So it was pretty groundbreaking for its time because we really didn't have the technology to do it. It was more theoretical than anything else. But the whole idea of sort of geodesign with layers of maps, pretty innovative. So anyway, I've been there before, but I would love to come back, and I would love to keep interacting with you. If there's something that you think I can help with in the future, folks, let me know.
Will do. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? We're just coming down to the wire here. While that's happening, I'm going to paste in the link for the survey for the session. So please, after you leave here, go and take the survey for this.
That way we can tell Joseph that everyone demanded he return next year.
Yep.
He can come out twice a year in two of the nicest times of year.
It's always nice in Arizona. Except that the last time I was there, I went up to the ECOSA Institute you've got to go to another session. You don't want to listen to me. I went to the ECOSA Institute in Prescott. Like 10 days after I was there, they had that big blizzard last spring. And I had to go to Germany, like right after I was in Arizona. So I thought if I had delayed my trip a little bit, I would have been stuck in Prescott, which is not a bad thing. But anyway, it would have been really interesting. Plus, I drove. You'll appreciate this as a geo community. The first time I'd done this, out of Prescott, there's a road that goes off to the southwest, and then it goes right off the rim, off the Colorado Plateau. And you're like, wow! It goes right off the edge. It's the coolest road ever. If only we had a map we could look up. If only we had a map we could look at that, the highway number on that. But it goes southwest, and it's just absolutely spectacular. Oh, my gosh. Yep, that was great. So hopefully I'll be able to do that again. But I'm glad I didn't do that in the snow, even though I'm from Colorado. That would have made me a little nervous. Anyway, folks, keep up the good work and map on, and I wish you all the best in your future.
Sean says it's 89 Yarnell Hill. So it's
Thank you so much for joining us, Joseph. We really appreciate it.
You folks are great. I really mean that. You're doing what we need to be doing to build a better world. So keep it up. Don't be discouraged.